This is the Expanding Boundaries podcast.
Do you feel trapped? Stuck in a world of mediocrity, constrained by bad habits, limiting beliefs, and feeling unfulfilled? Do you feel that deep down you know you were destined for much more? In Expanding Boundaries, you'll discover how you can break free and step into your real life, a life without limits. And now, here's your host, Michael McLeish.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Expanding Boundaries podcast. I've got an awesome guest today, Mr. Kevin Marron, and we're going to have a really good show today, a good discussion, and so hang on tight. It's going to be a fun ride. I've gotten to know Kevin here a bit over the last few years. We're in the same mastermind, and Kevin, for those that don't know you here that are listening, can you tell them a little bit more about who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. I am a lifelong entrepreneur. A lot of people know me as the Gutter King. That's my main business for the good part of the last 20 years. I'm also now started a company, Blue Collar Millionaire, where I'm kind of talking about all the things we're going to talk about today, of all my struggles, what I learned, how I overcame them. And I really like to see all entrepreneurs get help and get the lives they want. Blue Collar Millionaire, blue collar guys, that was just kind of my niche. I was always around them. I always kind of thought like a white collar guy to give a thing in a blue collar body. And I always found it to be a huge advantage in business and everything. So I try to share that with guys. But I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm happy to answer any questions and tell you exactly what I've been doing over. This is my 33rd year as an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Wow. 33 years, huh? Well, you've got lots of stories to tell then.
Yeah. It's actually probably longer, but that's like when I officially was an adult and got incorporated.
Yeah, totally understand that. All right. Well, before we dive into those details, tell us, where are you located right now? Where do you live?
I live in Atlanta, Georgia. If you hear me, you probably think, well, I don't sound like that. That's because I lived in New Jersey for the first 40 years of my life. But now I'm in Atlanta. I live here with my family, and I love it down here.
All right. Awesome. Do you like to travel?
I do.
Yeah.
Anywhere I can go, do a lot of trips around the country, and looking to do many more outside the country in the next few years.
All right. Well, tell us about that. So, what's one place in the world that you must visit in your lifetime?
I want to go to Greece. Greece is one I want to go, and my mother is 83 years old, and so I'm bringing her on kind of all vacations now, and I'd like to get my brother goes with me as well, and I'd like to get my sister going, so I'd like to go to Greece. I want to go back to Ireland. I haven't been to Ireland in 40 years. All my grandparents are from Ireland, so they're all gone now, but that's a big part, and I'd love to go to Ireland, and doesn't look like we'll do it this year, but for sure go to probably both those places next year.
Wow. Those would be amazing trips. I've been to Greece, and it's awesome for sure, and Ireland's definitely high on the bucket list.
Yeah, and Italy as well. My girlfriend went to Italy. She did some modeling, and she did that last year, and she's been talking my ear off about it since she got back. So I may do Italy this year. Gotcha.
Well, if you go to Italy, what's the top 3 bucket list things that you would have to do there?
Just based going on her, she loved Florence so much. She thinks like we should spend almost all our time there. She liked going to Rome just because it's Rome and you do, but she felt like 1 or 2 days was enough for her there. I really don't know enough about it, but it's just that she talks about it so much, and I saw all the pictures and videos, and I was like, wow, this looks nice. So, and now, I can work virtually, and I can kind of do whatever I want. So it's not like it stops because you go to Italy for 10 days. I don't need 8 hours a day. Give me 2 hours a day and I'll get stuff done.
100%. Well, besides clothing and toiletries, what's one thing that you never leave home without when you're traveling?
My laptop.
Your laptop?
Yeah, I always got to have that. You could do phone work on your phone, and I do a lot, but yeah, I just like to have the laptop, catch up, see what my team's doing, everything. So yeah, my laptop, I would never leave home without it on any trip.
Yep. I mean, that's what keeps us all connected at this point where we're at in society. If the laptop isn't there, you can't do much.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, so you said what, 33 years as an
33
entrepreneur?
years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm 50 and I was doing it full time at 18. So 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so I guess it's 30, 33.
Okay. Did you ever have a job before that?
Not really. I started like 12 years old delivering newspapers. That was a thing back then. And
Mm-hmm.
you had to deliver newspapers and collect money. And then I was cutting lawns and doing odd jobs around the neighborhood. I have no idea why I do have an idea of why I was an entrepreneur, but I don't really know how I knew that at 12 to do that. But I remember my sister was 5 years older than me, and we used to drive her to the video store, and she was making $3.35 an hour. And I used to ask my dad, like, "What? I cut lawns. I make $20 basically in an hour. What the hell? We got to drive her there, and now we got to go pick her up." It didn't make any sense to me, and I was like 13, 14 years old. And my dad was like, "Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Don't do it." So he was an accountant, but he was like, "You should go do this, go make more money like that." So that's what I was doing. I was cutting lawns. I was like kind of the kid cutting all the lawns in the neighborhood. And then I started getting a lot of momentum. And then I said, "Oh, let me get one of these commercial mowers." I did when I was 17. I was still in high school. And then I just started that business full time. I had a whole path. And when I was in school, I felt school was pretty easy, but it was really boring for me. So I had a notebook back then, and I was basically writing my plans on my landscaping business all day, every day, doing numbers and how many customers I'd need. And of course, I didn't know everything, but that's what I was doing. So when I got out of high school, I was full speed ahead on that.
Wow. Okay. So you knew at that point that was what you're going to continue to do. Did you think you would stay in that space in landscaping, or did you have a bigger vision beyond that?
I didn't really. I had a bigger vision. I thought, because part of my plan was I'll buy a truck, I'll hire somebody, then I'll hire a second person. So I had a whole plan of having like kind of 3 trucks, how much I thought I would net. Now, of course, I was 17 or 18, so you find out a lot of new expenses that you don't know about. You think you know everything. You're like, oh wow, this is a lot harder, and it's harder to maybe get customers and get the prices you want. So there was some growing pains in there. It didn't grow as fast as I wanted, for sure. But I had an idea of like, hey, in about 4 years, I could get this to where I want. I could probably keep it and make money. And then I really wanted to get into real estate. And why did I know that? Because the most successful guy in our neighborhood had the coolest cars. He lived across the street from us in the same house, but they were living a really different life than us.
Mm.
We went to a vacation home they had in Cape Cod, and the house was amazing. And I was thinking, whoa, they're living way different. So he had a lot of rental properties. And he told me one time, he says, buy rental properties when you're young. You'll never meet somebody my age. And funny, he's my age when he told me this. He was about 50. He says, you'll never meet someone my age who bought real estate when they were young and bought it smart, who isn't rich when they're my age. You won't meet one. And I think that's pretty much true. You got to buy it smart.
Yep.
You can't just buy crap. But I mean, he basically had all these properties paid off, and he was about 50, 52 years old. And I thought, wow, that was really smart. So I was just listening to all this stuff. I was always looking for better ways, shortcuts. That's just how I was thinking. I wasn't thinking like, I want to go to college. And because I was watching my sister, she was smarter than me, but she had a job, came out of college for like 22 grand or 20, that's what they were making back in, this is 1992 or so. That sounds horrible. Like you can go cut grass and make a lot more than that. What? And you don't have, and she's getting on a train and going to New York. It sounded ridiculous to me. It still does.
Yeah. So why do you think she didn't jump in with you? Like what kept her on that path versus you on yours?
Well, now she's a very successful attorney and everything, but she just doesn't think like that. It's like she thinks a different way. She's much smarter than me in other ways, and she's just not entrepreneurial. And neither was my father. My father was really smart, and that's not how he thought. My mom was an entrepreneur. So I think like her. I talk to her every day now. She's involved in my company, and we think alike. And I don't know, you can't explain it to other people. You just Mike, some people just think it and other people, it never crosses their mind. All I do is drive around and see opportunities to make money, to build businesses. I like to, when I see a business, I'll ask people questions. How does that work? I just like to see how it goes. And I have no interest in working for someone. So when you ask me, did I ever work for someone? I worked for a landscaper when I was like 16 for like 2 or 3 weeks, just because he was working in our neighborhood and he was doing pavers. And I really wanted to learn how to do pavers. And I just walked up to him and he said, yeah, you can come over. I'll give you, I think it was $7 an hour. And I learned a lot in 3 weeks.
That's pretty good
But
pay back then.
Yeah, so that was the only time. And I delivered pizza or something too when I was like 16. But again, so no, I didn't work. I never did.
All right, cool. So what was the, we've got a lot of time to cover here, but how did you end up getting to be the gutter king?
Well, when I was doing that landscaping business and I was in my early 20s and it was going well and I had bought up a property or two and I liked it, but I came upon gutter cleaning because this older guy said, hey, can you clean my gutters? And I was like, I guess. And he goes, why don't you just take that backpack blower and just go up there and blow it out? And he said, I'll give you $50 or something, and which is super cheap, right? So I said, I'm not going up there for $50. He said, I'll give you 80. And I said, all right. So I went and grabbed a ladder. My mom lived nearby. I knew that my stepfather had a ladder. I came back. I came back and I blew that out in like 8 minutes. I was a young athletic kid and I was a little nervous on the roof, but I had been on roofs before a little bit growing up, doing some stuff with my dad. And the light bulb went off. The rest of the day I was like, whoa, did I just make like $80 in 8 minutes? Like, this is nuts. And it didn't take me long. I had flyers going out. I contacted all my landscaping customers, said, hey, I can do this for you. So over the next 2 years, I was building the gutter thing simultaneously while I was doing with landscaping, and I loved it. And it was so easy. And I saw there was a demand there. So that made me want to sell the landscaping business. And I saw some trends in the landscaping business that I knew a lot of the people we were hiring were people from South America. They were getting their citizenship and they were going to start their own businesses. I had several of them do that. So I said, hey, and I'm thinking in about 3 to 5 years, there's going to be so much competition here from guys who have a better labor pool. So I saw that and I ended up selling my business, and it worked out really well for me. And I already had the gutter thing going. So I built that up to many, many hundreds of houses. And I was doing flipping real estate at the same time. So it was going well, but what really changed for me to become, I'll call it the gutter king, was I was driving down and I saw apartment complexes and I saw these leaves on the roof. And once I saw it again, once you see it, I said, well, what the hell am I doing houses for? These are easier to walk because the pitches are really easy. And I'm kind of doing risky stuff sometimes on houses because I was taking 8, 10, 12 pitch roofs. If there's a roofer in here, they know what that means. It's a little bit risky. They're very easy to walk. So I just started walking into apartment complexes. And because I sold the landscaping business, I had a couple years worth of money just stacked up. I was living way below my means. So I basically spent 6 months of my life just walking into 24 places a day. And why is it 24? Because every time I walked into 24, I got at least one. I had a formula. So I have OCD. There's no way I can only walk into 22 if I know that those are the statistics. So I would get up early, and by the fall time, I had like over 100 complexes ready to go. And that's how I did it.
That's amazing.
So that sounds like this great story and everything, because now I'm in kind of my late 20s at this point. It's going well and going great, but 2007 and 2008 came. But that's what happened there was because I was in New Jersey, it's very seasonal up there. You only do gutters a couple months in the fall and maybe a couple months in the spring. So you can do them both. I'd have all this dead time, and I was flipping properties and reading books like The Art of the Deal. And I was like, I want to do bigger stuff. Because the market went crazy there in 2003, 2004, 2005, I started to make some easy money, and it was much easier than gutters. Because gutters, you have all these employees, you have all these things, and I started to neglect. This is one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I was neglecting my business, 100%, not calling people back, not getting back to them. And I didn't really care. I remember one guy who gave me a lot of complexes. He was like, "Man, you're the hardest person to get on the phone. I can't even get you on the phone to do anything." And I remember I was thinking, I don't care. Like, I'm making all this money on flips. I don't care about gutters. And it was a huge mistake, because when the market changed there, it really changed at the end of 2006 in New Jersey. And by then I was doing some condo conversions, and I was doing multiple flips, and everything the shit hit the fan. I was totally leveraged out. I was trying to get bigger and bigger, and I got wiped out. And the next 6 months of my life was pretty horrible. For people who went through that, they know what that was like. It's like you're losing. Your job is to now lose money. You're just trying to not lose more money. Generating money is not even on your mind. You're just trying to put out fires. They're everywhere. So I had also been going through a divorce, which had nothing to do with that, but that didn't help me financially either. So I ended up on my brother's couch, 2007. I did take kind of my first job. I took a job. And I had run my gutter business down so much. Now, there was an effect on what was left of the gutter business as well, because complexes and stuff were tightening up with money.
Right.
Especially apartment complexes. They were not worrying about getting their gutters clean when people aren't paying rent. There were still condominium associations paying it, because that's kind of separate in an HOA budget. But I had to I took this job selling insurance. This was my first job. It was, do I want to say it was humiliating? To me, it was. And it was also a public failure. Like, everyone in my family knew, my cousins knew, my friends knew. It's not like anybody was, I told you so, but I definitely felt that energy. Right. Because when I was making money in real estate, it's not that I was this cocky guy, but I did think I was the smartest guy in the room. I really did. And I remember laying on my brother's couch one day, and I was thinking, you're not that smart. You really aren't that smart at all. Like, I realized I caught this wave. And maybe we see some people that happen to now, where they caught a wave and they made a bunch of money, and now we're going to find out who can figure it out and pivot and who can't. So
the market made everybody look good here in the last 10 years.
Yep. So I had a lot of debt. I had some, my brother invested money with me, and you can't just say, I can't say to my brother, "Oh yeah, it's an investment, man. You're out $100,000. I was like, all right, I have to work, pay off all this debt, grind this out, rebuild my life, pay people off, get this. And that's basically what I did for 4 or 5 years. Every day, all day, 7 days a week. No breaks. I didn't
ever go on a
vacation. Yeah. No, I say no break. I was selling insurance, but I was also rebuilding my gutter business.
Okay. Yep.
So I got right back to rebuilding that. And I had to figure out all these different ways to do it, because I didn't have the cash. And when you do a gutter on an apartment complex, you'll do it, say it's for $3,000. There's big margins in there, but you're not going to get a check for 75 days. So the more I do, the more money I need to pay helpers, or, get rent vans or ladders or whatever it is. So I started getting really resourceful. I had no credit. Mike, I had a $300 credit limit on one credit card, and I had to pay $99. My credit was shot to have that credit card, so I couldn't even rent a vehicle, because I used to have to rent vans when I'd have so much work. I have to get my brother to come out of work, use his credit card. He was always down to help me, and that's why to this day he's living in my house now. And I told him he's got immunity forever. You can live here for free, no cost.
That was a good investment he took in you, huh?
Yeah, he don't have to pay for anything. We went to the Final Four last weekend. I take him to Jamaica. It's all on the house forever, because he was down to help me when nobody was down to help me, and you never can forget that. But he's been my whole life like that. So the grind to get back to where I was it was brutal looking back. I would start early in the morning, cold calling businesses about workers' comp, 7:30 in the morning, because you can get contractors then. I would stay till 6 o'clock at night, try to make money on the insurance. I was pretty good at that. And then I was trying to rebuild gutter business, and I had to find subcontractors and people to do the work and not get paid till I got paid, which is super hard to do. You can tell somebody you're not going to get paid for 60 days. So I have to give them a big share of it. But I figured it out, and I got out of that debt. It took many years. People want to believe like you get out of these things in 6 months. And that doesn't work like that. Years. I owed money on taxes, all kinds of stuff. It took me till basically even though I was making good money by 2010, 11, 12, good money, whatever that is, I still had things to pay, but I rebuilt it. But when I was doing it, I said, well, how do I do this and make $1 million a year? That's I don't know why I came up with this number. Okay. I said, I want to do this smart. How do I make $1 million a year? I love numbers. I love spreadsheets. So I figured out, how much do I profit on a job? What's my margin? And let's just call it $1,000. So I said, well, I got to do 1,000 jobs to net $1,000 on each to make $1 million. And then I kind of just reverse engineered that. And I only told one person. And I remember I told him, I was having some beers with him, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to make $1 million on this. And he said, you're going to gross $1 million? How are you going to do that? I said, no, I'm going to net $1 million. And he was like, you're crazy. That makes no sense. You'll never do that. And I was determined to do that because I needed to make a lot of money to make a lot of things right. But I also wanted to rebuild. I wanted to see I could do it, because when you lose all money like that and you go through that, it takes a toll on you mentally. It changed me. It changed my personality. It does, right? People don't think about that, but when you're on your brother's couch, you're divorced and you lost money and everybody's kind of looking at you like you're a loser, and you start regretting things. Well, maybe I should have went to college. Maybe I should have never did this. Everything's you start questioning all your decisions. And I was beating myself up for months about that. And it made me a total introvert. I talked to you about, I had always been go out and have beers with my friends, but then I started drinking on my own at night. I would work crazy. I'd work till come back from work and then go to the gym. It would be 11 o'clock and I'd go have a 6-pack at midnight. For what? Just because I felt I needed some break from my brain and whatever. And then I'd get up real early and do it all over again. And I had this vicious kind of cycle of doing that. And now I look back, it's 15 years later, and all these problems went away in 2014. That's when I was stacking money up. I had rebuilt my credit. I had done a lot of things. I felt wow, I'm making a lot of money in this has it. And I started that, but it took me almost that much years to really get back to myself and my personality. That might sound crazy to someone, 6 years, but I was just an introvert and I was doing all the things, but now I had some bad habits, and one of them was alcohol. It was I was working all the time, but I had this whole system of I would work and then I would have drinks, and I got in this kind of vicious cycle. So even though my business was growing really fast, I didn't stop drinking until 4 years ago, and I was doing really well. It might appear to be, but I realize now, I knew at that point, if I ever stopped drinking and I have no recovery time or anything, I'll make this into something incredible. And that's how I feel now. It's just I'm living up to kind of my potential it's not just Gutter King. I'm doing Blue Collar Millionaire. I'm buying apartment buildings. I own a storage facility. I don't think all those things were going to happen if you're killing 8 or 9 beers at nighttime. It's just not. Right. Not for me anyway. And people could say, some people have 2 beers. Who cares? They have a glass of wine. It doesn't really stop them from doing anything. That's different from having 8 or 10. Right. You got a problem. You got a problem. And I knew I did. And you get in this vicious cycle. So that's kind of the story and the thing. The key to me was I figured out just how to get a lot of complexes, and I just rinsed and repeated it. And how do you do that? You contact them, you call them. You were talking about that woman who's killing it. That's basically how I was doing it. I was walking in places. I would call anyone. I didn't care. Like,
Yep.
that's the only good. When you hit rock bottom, when I hit rock bottom and I had to walk into places like a Dunkin' Donuts to sell insurance, and they do not want you in there. Some people times they'll get out of here. They yell at you. They don't want it. And you feel when you hit rock bottom and you can fight through and still get up every day and do it. You almost put like an armor around you that you can do anything. So when I look back, it's actually, this sounds crazy, Mike. That was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I became a better person and I became much more skilled, much smarter, much more resourceful. And even though I had success that first 15 years as an entrepreneur, it wasn't massive. I did well, and I was doing better than my friends and things like that. But I needed that, like, that dropped me down so much that I had no choice but to like go all in. And I just like failure was just not an option. So I was going 7 days a week. I was working on the weekends too. When on the weekends, what was I doing? I was building databases. I learned how to build Microsoft Access, just different stuff that like I never would have done before. I didn't have the money to hire people. You had to figure it out. And, my mom helped me with that too. She's a programmer. So I don't want to say I learned that. She helped me do a lot of that. But I was doing that on the weekends, and I would get myself so ready so that my Monday was like just ready to make money. Whereas most people show up for work and then they kind of figure out what they're going to do. Like, I knew exactly what I was doing every minute of the day for the most part. And that really helped me grow quickly. And once I saw that I could do it in 1 or 2 states, I said, well, I could do it in more states. So now I'm in 29 states with Gutter. So
Wow.
it's just the same it's the same thing. Once I like to try something, once it works, I try to perfect it while I'm making money. I don't try to be perfect. I make money, I figure out quirks, and then once I see it works, I pour gasoline on it.
It's beautiful. That's how it's done. So I have a question going back a little bit. You're talking about hitting the
Sure.
rock bottom. That was the best thing that ever happened to you, right?
Yeah.
In your words. Do you think you had to hit rock bottom to get to where you are today? Or would there have been, knowing what you know now, like if somebody could have come into your life and said, hey, make this change, would it have been possible? Or do you think that was a necessary thing that had to happen for you to get to where you are now?
That's a good question. And I think the answer is, for most people, that person can come in their life and do that. And but I was pretty stubborn, and I thought I knew everything. And I did have a chip on my shoulder when I was young because when I said I wasn't going to college, that was like the worst thing in the world to my parents and my sister and everything.
Yeah.
So I liked that I had success, and it was kind of like, told you so, told you I know what I'm doing. And so when it happened, it was that much more painful. So would I have listened? I don't know. I think about this a lot of times when I'm driving in the car. I think if I could go back at 50, or I used to think about this years ago when I was 47, if I could have just went back and had a week with myself, I could have told myself, hey, you got to, these are the things you need to do to fix this, and fix this quick. So yeah, I think that had I had the right people around me, mentors, even with the real estate investing, I was doing condo conversions by myself. I had contractors and stuff, but I didn't have somebody who had done other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have anybody who was doing a lot of things. I was winging it. And in my mind, I had a history of figuring things out. I should have been doing it with people who had experience, who were 50 when I was 30, and taken a piece of it, learned from them. They would have saw things I didn't see, and they would have said, this is too risky. I don't like this because of this, this, and this. And we would have aborted those deals. That's what I try to do for blue collar guys now. Or there was a guy in my group, he's 27. He wanted to buy this roofing business. I looked at it, and within minutes, I killed it. 65% of his business was coming from one client. It was a builder.
Ooh,
I said, first of all, the economy, that's a huge risk. I said, what does it look like if this guy leaves you or he stops building lots of houses? How much is his business? He says, oh, well, then it would be no good. I said, well, then don't buy it, because that's That's not unlikely to happen. I think it's actually likely to happen.
Yep.
So that's a great question. I don't regret that it all happened, but had I had a lot of people I have around me now, I have mentors, I have great guys like yourself and all the deal maker guys, I just don't think it would have happened.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, that's an amazing story. And again, it had to happen that way for you probably,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a lot of people out there that they had to hit rock bottom before they could finally, see the light or see a different change and then say, I'm not going back there again. I'm going to make that change today and build it up again. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Just sharing all that with us. That's an amazing story. Let's fast forward to where we're at today, though. Tell us about Blue Collar. I'm going to make it Blue Collar Billionaire. How about that? Blue Collar Millionaire.
Millionaire is boring. We call it Blue Collar Decamillionaire. 10 million sounds a lot better, but billionaire would be insane.
Yeah, tell us about it.
I don't know of any of them, but so for years I was always kind of helping guys. Even back in my landscaping days, I was helping guys with marketing and ideas to grow their business. I just always thought like that, and I see a lot of blue collar guys. They're not really business guys. They're more just guys who don't want to work for someone. They're more craftsmen. They like to be out there. So basically from 2012 to 2020, I helped a lot of guys. I have a lot of subcontractors and I helped a lot of them. So I decided, hey, I should start like a kind of a group and see what I can do to help them. And that's how I did it. So I had this Blue Collar Millionaire idea. I didn't really want to be on camera and I was reluctant to do that, right? Back then, now I'm on camera and I do lives and everything. It's nothing to me. But back then I did not want to do it. So I thought I need somebody else who has a really outgoing personality to kind of have a podcast feel off or do stuff with. And I barely knew Chris Garrison, but I had watched him and he has that personality. And then Mark Evans is like, no, he's got a big, nice business. I mean, then you have to actually find a blue collar guy who's like a millionaire too. So it's a combination. I asked him and he said yes, he was really interested. We hit it off. And now Chris and I are 50-50 partners on this. We started up this company. We do every week. We have a Facebook group. It's, of course, free to join. I try to give out some advice. He does things that work for me, things that don't. Try to speed up everyone's learning curve. Every Tuesday, we do a live. We bring a entrepreneur on. Most of them are blue collar guys. Some of them aren't. It doesn't really matter. They're all very successful people. They tell their story kind of like I just did today. And I want to get that borrowed belief in the community and I've gotten so much positive feedback. It's like awesome. I get all these messages and people, like one guy said, no, I don't want to offend you, but he's like, if you made millions of dollars, why can't I? Like, I just think like this guy's not smart. That's exactly what I want. Nobody is. Yeah. I worked harder maybe than some people. I was more driven, but I did a lot of dumb shit too. So like, I want to show people this kind of path to, I don't want to insult people, but making $100,000 or $150,000 is nothing. Like you can make millions of dollars and enjoy what you do, be around your family, have a sellable asset that you're 50 years old, 60, 40, it doesn't matter. You can sell this company for millions of dollars. And I want to help these guys get there. So that's what we talk about. And that's what we want, guys. And we just gotten great feedback from it. And I really enjoy it too.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, it's just a part of, I love the expression borrowed belief, right? And I think Mark Evans gave that phrase to me years ago when I very first met him in person the first time. But it's, seeing is believing, right? So
yeah,
if you can show people that this is possible and they're in that community, they're immersed in that environment, why can't it be for them? If they're willing to be open to seeing that and believing it's true for them. So I think that's amazing that you're doing that for folks out there.
I think that's so true in that borrowed belief. That's been a huge thing for me as far as going to another one, because when I grew up, $100,000 was like this marker of major success. So that's what all I thought about when I was landscaping, like how do I make $100,000? And I did the last couple of years. And then I thought, well, 200,000 is massive. And then I thought $1 million was like, oh my God, $1 million in a year. Like, you don't even want to tell someone that. You feel like they're going to get mad at you for thinking that big. Now I think it's not like, why not you see these guys making billions. It's all like in our head, right? We create it, but you have to be around people who think much bigger than you, or at least on your level. And you know what happens I'll use alcohol as a thing. So even though I was making money and I was making $600,000, $700,000, this is back in like 2016 or so. And I thought I was really killing it. And I was like, I'm going to make $1 million. This is just a matter of time. But I was like living this other life where when you drink like that, like I was hanging out with kind of degenerates. And people do that because people who are successful making $500,000 don't want to go out and get beers on a Wednesday night. They got families and everything. And I have a 4-year-old now, so I didn't have kids. And I didn't really even like these guys sometimes. And I used to think like, why am I even here? Like if I wasn't drinking a beer with them, I'd never hang out with them. So I was kind of like Mark Evans calls it the king of the dipshits, right? They would look at me like, wow, look at what this guy was doing. And they would say, yeah, I'm going to do what you're doing. But they wouldn't do anything. Like they can't even get their credit or pay their child support or something. Like I'm like, why am I hanging out with these guys? So I made a conscious effort in 2017 or 18. I was like, I kind of like, even before that, 2016, 17, I was not hanging out with anybody. And all I would do was like be on YouTube with like Jim Rohn. And I used to watch The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis and Gary Vee and different, like I liked these guys. These were almost became my friends.
Yeah.
Like I had no friends, but I had a couple really good friends who are great guys, but they were remote. We were just doing it on text. But all these other guys, I basically cut them all out. And then I said, well, I need new friends. And then I start seeing on Facebook and I saw like Tim Bratz and I liked his message and he was talking about apartment complexes and he has these events. And I'm like, I need to be at these events and not like sitting at my house on a Saturday night watching the UFC, but I was really just working. And I thought, let me get involved in this. So I went to Tim Bratz's event. I ended up talking to him. I saw Mark Evans speak there. Next thing I know, I did a call with him. I got in his mastermind. I met Mark. I started meeting Mike Burns, Josh Z, all these different people, and it just steamrolled. And I love talking to them because whatever you talk about, there's no judgment. Everybody thinks big. Everybody wants to help each other. I've never had anyone in any of these groups do anything but try to help you. Then I got into Dealmaker. I got in some other things. And now these guys are kind of all my friends, right? I'm talking to them on the phone. I love meeting up with you guys when we go do our events.
Yep.
I bring my family. You can bring your family, especially to the DM events. It's very family oriented. That's what I wanted to be around. And, you know, it's crazy now I'm doing this, the partners, the war room with inside the Blue Collar Millionaire, which is a paid group about buying businesses. I do that with Mark and Chris. It's just like funny how things go. You look back, I'm like, I used to hang out with these people and I'd be telling them the most basic stuff and drinking a beer with them and they wouldn't do shit. They wouldn't do anything to change their life. A year later, they're exactly where they are, but they're actually worse. And I said, I just don't want this energy around me. So getting around people like that was a huge thing that changed my life as well. I just got so much more positive, more outgoing. And I just love those groups and meetups. And I go to a lot of one-off ones too, Mike. Went to Chris Rude's in Gatlinburg, and I just like being around that energy.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, your environment does a lot for what you know, what's going on in your head, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
All right. Well, what is one simple task or action or tip that you could give to our listeners that they could implement right away that would most expand their boundaries and help them get unstuck and move forward?
I could think of a few, but I'll give one. And people probably heard this, but do they actually do it? If you do this, it's a much better way to do it. And that's reverse engineer something. So think of where you want to be in 1, 3, and 5 years and make it big, make it scary. If it's easy and you think it's attainable, you'll get bored and you probably won't do it. So if that's make $1 million a year, make it that. If it's make $1 billion, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be money. It could be any part of your life. And then reverse engineer it. Start breaking down the steps. What type of person do you have to be that? What kind of business would you have to have? What kind of leader would you have to be? And start breaking it down, kind of going backwards. And I mean, write it out. I literally did this with the $1 million thing. I said, I will need this many complexes. I will need these people under me. I will need this type of credit, but I didn't have credit at the time. So I said, I would need these, this is how I'd have to get paid. And you start breaking it down. And when you write it out and you get it in like 2 pages, you're like, this is actually doable. That's what you start to think. And you think, all right, this isn't doable in a month or even a year maybe, but this, I could do this over 2 years or 3 years. And then you have to enjoy the journey of doing it. And what happens is once you start, so you start on that list and you start going up, each time you get more confident, you build more confidence in yourself as somebody, you know, to yourself, you get shit done. Like, that's why in 2013, 14, like I was still looking at that goal and I'm like, this is not only going to happen, I'm going to go over it. It's just about putting the work in. Can you stay consistent? And I think people just look at, they make their goals really small and then they work the other way. They say, let me just get up early and take a cold shower and it'll all work. That's not how it works. Do it the other way. What are the things that really matter? Like you talk about ERC, make phone calls, walk in on that business. It doesn't matter what your logo looks like, your business card, what your mom thinks about it, what your girlfriend, who gives a shit? Don't ask anybody. Reverse engineer it and start today, not yesterday. So if that means you start writing it down today, start. Don't say you're going to start on Monday. Just do it.
That is powerful. I mean, if you're listening to this, you got to rewind that last 5 minutes and play that 2 or 3 times and let that sink in. If you want to get out of where you're at, that's the way. That's the way.
Reverse engineer it and start now. Doesn't mean you have to get it all done, but start writing on it. I don't care if you just start a draft. Start today. None of this, I'm going to start after the weekend shit.
Yep. Just break it down to bite-sized pieces. And 1 fork at a time. So that's amazing. I love it. All right. So Kevin, how can our guests today find you or connect with you?
They can find me at Kevin Marron. You see the spelling here, Kevin, last name Marron, Marron. I'm on Facebook. If you put that in, there's only like 3 of us and you'll see me. You can also go to Blue Collar Millionaire Facebook page and get connected there. Okay. If you want a website, bluecollarmillionaire.net, you can find me there. But if you go on Facebook, you friend me and you message me and you say you saw me on this podcast or something, I'll definitely reach out to you. Anything I can do to help you. I just like helping people.
Well, that's what I like about you. I mean, we've spent a number of phone calls. I'm like, hey, I'm stuck on this thing, or can you give me advice? Or I'm looking at buying this business, and you've always been more than willing to share a little time with me, and I've always appreciated that.
Yeah.
So, and before we go, you got a podcast coming out.
I do. So Chris Garrison and I are going to be doing a Blue Collar Millionaire podcast. So if you join our Blue Collar Millionaire Facebook group, we'll be posting it all over that. It's going to be quick episodes, 20 minutes. We have topics. We already have about 30 of them. It's not just for blue collar millionaires. It's for entrepreneurs. And it's going to be about marketing, about better ways to get paid, better ways to scale, everything. We're going to be talking about them. And I envision that as something you're driving to a job or you're driving to work and you listen to that for 20 minutes. And we really want to provide nuggets. And hopefully you'll say, man, that was helpful. I'll use that. And I only talk about shit I've done. That's all I do. If I don't know it, I don't talk about it.
All right, perfect. Well, hopefully everybody here can join you over there. I'll get with JR and see if we can link the show also in the show notes here today. So Kevin Marron, thank you very much for being on the show today. This is an awesome discussion. I really appreciate your time. And so for those of you that are listening, please take at least one big idea that Kevin shared and take some action on that. Take some action, big or small, expand your boundaries today.
Yep, just get going. All right, appreciate you having me on, Michael.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.
This is the podcastfactory.com.